Alright, today I worked on Buoyancy, and I have a couple things to show off real quick. I first started by giving these objects you can pick up some buoyancy, so they'll float in the water, and the player can also still like bounce off of it and pick them up, all that jazz. Oh, I missed. Get out of here. Yeah, and if they were to like roll off, it'll just end. Couldn't really show it there. Now notice the ball floated in this water, and the player is not. I also added floating for the player, but when I implemented buoyancy, I'm taking the bounding box on the z-axis of whatever is trying to float, and basically half of that, if half of that reaches something solid, then they're not supposed to float. And that works perfectly for the player's height here. You can see in the top left there, it says water too shallow to float. So it's not too shallow for the ball, but it is too shallow for Jim because he's taller than the ball. But if I were to go up here into this water, see the balls still float, but now Jim will also float. Now the actual swimming, I still have a lot to do. All I did was make it so that he floats and that you can move him. There's still a lot of issues. Example 1, hitting this rock. He just sort of rotates right now. I have to set up some constraints while he's swimming so that he doesn't like rotate like that. You can also currently try to grab the ball still, and then that happens. I'll make it so if you're swimming you can't pick stuff up. And the bounding box thing, also, you notice when Jim dives, it looks like his box shrinks. And it does, but because it's also taking the bounding box of like everything there, it won't make him swim if he's like diving either, which is good for me. Very good. There's sort of a jitter when he runs between these, though. That's a little strange. That's pretty much all I've done with that so far. I haven't gone too far into it, but I do think it's a pretty cool system so far. I'm basically just faking the buoyancy. Or basically, when you start it, it sets linear damping and it gets the water's level, and then I have two functions running. One that continuously checks the water's level, just in case you're in a river or something that's going downhill, so that we'll always have the proper Z to compare to. And then something that applies an upward force based on the depth that they are at in the water. So if they're deeper, it'll push them up faster. And I also have an offset that can apply. And all this would do is, say you want the ball to float at the very top of the water, I could just set that to be the height of the object, and it will float at the top rather than halfway. So that just adds some customization there. There's also a public buoyancy value, and this is the base buoyancy. So this is what would actually be edited on object per object basis. And this is just a base value to make things work. This is all dependent on the mass, though. So I might have to make this object basis too. It'll be something I'll have to figure out. Because I know I used 100,000 here, but on Jim, I ended up using, where are you? 3,000. Because he has a lot less mass. That's all stuff that I'm not too worried about, though, because I can just touch it up. But yeah, then it just adds force. And then when you leave, it basically just undoes everything. Really simple. Actually, there's not a whole lot going on there. Faking buoyancy is kind of easy, apparently. But yeah, that's about it for what I've done so far.